Lives in the balance. Have you ever bargained with a ghost? We're going to. We're not supposed to be here, but none of us could resist the chance to sneak into the Durgee house on Halloween. At 3 a.m., no less. It helps that Alex's father is the caretaker. All Alex had to do was filch the keys from his dad's desk. That was his part of the deal. The rest of us brought what we could up to the attic. Flashlights, flameless candles to avoid a fire hazard, a stool, and a noose. Yeah, you heard me right. A hangman's noose, pre-tied according to a TikTok tutorial. Brandon volunteered to do that. As obsessed with death as he is, it's no wonder. I'm Kara. I know the background of this place and the man who lived in it. In fact, a member of our town's historical society gave me a gift, an antique that will serve us well. And Delia, our fearless leader, knows how to conduct business at this hour. She turns on the white flameless candles and places them in a circle around the stool. Then Brandon turns on his flashlight, climbs up on the stool, throws the noose over a rafter beam, and secures it. It figures he'd know how to do that too. He clambers down. "All right," says Delia. "Let's do this." She turns her flashlight on, illuminating her face but leaving the rest of her in darkness. It reminds me of someone telling ghost stories by a campfire. She's not that far off. Rule number 1, no phones. We can't get reception up here anyway. Rule number 2, no making any loud noises or sudden moves. Rule number 3, no standing in front of the window or shining your flashlights through it. Rule number 4, no fucking around. Rule number 5, no fun, quips Alex. Brandon snickers. "Shut up, we have work to do." She gestures toward me. "Kara, did you bring the scales?" "Sure did. Take them out of your backpack, but only when I tell you." "I brought the knife." Alex clicks his flashlight on. "What?" "I also brought a sewing pin if you'd like to use that." Delia gives him the side eye. "We're drawing blood?" "Wait a minute. You only told us about the noose. Sup with that?" asks Brandon. "We're conducting a binding ritual, so blood will be involved." "I feel faint already," says Alex. "Look, do you want to do this or not?" "Hell yeah." "Speaking of hell," says Brandon, "are we selling our souls to Satan?" "No." I click my flashlight on. "We're dealing with a ghost, the spirit of Albert Durgee, our county judge in the late 1800s. He hanged several people. 4 of them were innocent." "How do you know that?" "From historical records. I've done a lot of studying. Durgee felt so guilty about executing those 4 that he hanged himself in this attic. Hence the noose and the scales. The scales were his prized possession. He kept them on the bench where he presided." I reach into my backpack to pull them out. "Not yet," Delia interjects. "Tell us some more about the victims." 2 men and 2 women. Ronnie Albright, Catherine Bradshaw, Zeb Comstock, and Emily Dawes. 3 alleged murderers and 1 alleged horse thief. They hanged folks back then for grand theft stallion. In all 4 of these cases, Judge Durgee made a mistake. A miscarriage of justice. That's what this ritual is going to try and fix, for a price. "Our blood," grumbles Alex. "Just a few drops, and your greatest desire weighed against your greatest confession." "Huh?" Delia sighs. "In words of 1 syllable, what do you wish for? What have you done wrong? Tell us, and tell the ghost. If he thinks you're not so guilty, he'll keep the brass scales balanced. They'll let you go and free you from the noose. He'll also grant your wish. However, if he sees your guilt and tips the scales 3 times, you die. Do you still wish to proceed?" "That's 2 syllables." "Oh yeah." Brandon puts his flashlight up to his face. "So who's going first?" "How about you?" asks Delia. "You're the one who loves to talk about anything morbid, so why don't you put your money where your mouth is?" "I will after you do." "What the?" "All right, Kara?" "The scales." I take them out of my backpack and present them to her. She removes a steak knife from her pack and pricks her finger with the tip of it. She holds her finger above the left weighing pan. 3 drops of blood fall into it. Hold it steady while I put pressure on my finger and climb up on the stool. I watch as Delia does so and slips the hangman's noose over her head. She then takes the scales from me and waits for them to balance. "Now then, it's critical that you all stay silent while I call on our late guest." She clears her throat. "A restless soul now summon we of a Judge Albert Durgee. 4 he slated for to die. Unquiet does his spirit lie. The ones he sentenced to the noose we call upon, to set us loose from the guilt that binds us fast and grant us one wish at long last. What we confess shall all be true, or we'll pay the proper due, serving for eternity with the judge, though dead we be. Cool poem, bro, says Brandon. Shut your face. There's more. After a tense moment, Delia goes on. Judge Durgy, hear and heed us well. Thou art between heaven and hell. Judge us rightly, hear our plea. Grant us boons, and saved you'll be. Judge us wrongly, and you'll take one more step toward a fiery lake. The 4 you hanged will take the stand along with us, at our command. If you condemn us, this you'll rue. There are lives in the balance, your soul is too. Goosebumps spread over my body like a 10-second plague. I am Delia Simon. I pledge upon the life of Catherine Bradshaw. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, Your Honor. The flameless candles flicker more brightly. I want my parents to get divorced. They're at each other's throats every day, and I'm sick of it. They claim they're staying together because of me, but I'm 16 years old. I don't need to be coddled. I know what's what. All their fighting over money and old affairs, that's not my fault. Neither is their insulting each other almost constantly. They should just get it over with and part ways. They don't want to split up their assets between them, however. No movement from the bloodied balance. One thing they agree on is me getting the best grades. I need to be valedictorian. They don't know I cheat. Once upon a time, I didn't need to. But now I have too many rivals. Lindsay Peterson, Brad Bard, Vanhi Acharya, and those are just the top 3. I'm 5th in our class, not even on the podium. Whoever paid attention to a 5th-place loser? She visibly trembles. The stool creaks beneath her. That's why I download most of my papers online and pay other students to do the rest. You'd be surprised how far $200 will go for kids who are smart but poor. Just as hungry to succeed, too. Puss, you call that a confession? Brandon sneers. Alex and I shush him. Your Honor, I wish I could tell you I'll stop cheating if you release me and grant my wish, but that would be a lie. It's just so easy, even with harsh anti-plagiarism rules in my classes. Besides, I have more shit to do than write a 1,000-word essay on Macbeth. I have a job, my friends, my family, a life. School takes that away from me. The scales tip, lowering the pan with the 3 drops of Delia's blood. Oh, come on. You don't think that what I've done is all that bad, do you? No answer. I get it. Strike 1. Remember Catherine Bradshaw? Kara knows more about her than I do, so I'll let her remind you. I swallow hard. My mouth's gone dry. Catherine's husband cheated on her. She called him out, they fought, and they tried to strangle each other. Self-defense was her argument, but you didn't buy it. You executed her instead. I know most people in the 19th century weren't feminists, but why didn't you sentence her to life in prison? You had a serious beef with women, friend, Your Honor. Agreed, says Delia. Well, that's all I've got. What's your verdict? Guilty or not guilty? The scales in her hand rebalance. Thank you, Judge Durgy. See you in court. Divorce court. Delia smiles wryly, slips her head out of the noose, and climbs down from the stool. She hands the scales back to me. I wipe the bloody pan off with one of the Kleenexes I always carry. Who's next? Me. Alex shines his flashlight on his face. I can do better than that. It's not a competition, says you. He pricks his finger on Delia's steak knife, lets 3 drops of his blood fall into the left scale pan, then takes his place as the next victim? Contestant? Defendant? The word comes to me in a deep male voice. My name's Alex Hayden. I pledge upon the life of that alleged thief. Ronnie Albright, I clarify. Yeah, I call his ghost to the stand with me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and all that shit. Ronnie died for allegedly stealing a horse. I steal for real. Money, jewelry, even scrap metal from manhole covers. Alex stands stock still, but the pan containing his blood sinks lower. Wait. My folks and I live paycheck to paycheck, and my mom has cancer. Ovarian. Don't lie to the judge, man, says Brandon. I'm not fucking lying. Let these scales stay tipped if I am. Otherwise, let them balance. After a rather reluctant pause, they recalibrate. There's more. Alex squares his shoulders. I stole a car a month ago for extra dough. Brandon blinks. No shit. No shit. It wasn't even a good car. Just some piece of crap with rusty bodywork. I hot-wired it late one night when no one was around. Took it to the junkyard for some cash. On the way back, I thought I saw someone running, but that was probably my imagination. I shudder. Anyway, Mom's chemo costs a fortune. I don't make enough at my McD's job to help make ends meet. If I can get my hands on something valuable, you bet I will, no matter what it is. The scales tip a second time. Alex gags as the noose tightens around his neck. Please, I'll do anything. As long as I get out of here and Mom gets better, please. The only sound we hear for the next few seconds is Alex's ragged breathing. In, out, in. Ronnie Albright's here too, I quickly tell him. Focus on his innocence and yours. Alex shuts his eyes tight. Poor Ronnie didn't steal anything. I steal for a good cause. The scales return to their former position. Thank you, all of you, especially Judge Durgee. He disentangles himself from the noose and climbs down from the stool. As he passes me to return to his place, I catch a whiff of his armpits, rank with fear. I'm not smelling great myself. Here. With shaking hands, Alex gives me the scales. I wipe them off again. My turn. With surprising rudeness, Brandon grabs them and yanks the steak knife away from Delia. One finger prick, 3 drops of blood, and he's headed for the stool. You guys are chicken shit. You've never experienced real fear. Let me show you how it's done. He hangs the noose over his head and tightens it like one who's done it hundreds of times. I'm Brandon Lowe. I pledge on the life of that other male killer, Kara? Zeb Comstock. He killed his worst enemy in a drunken brawl. The judge called it murder. Yeah, him. Old Zeb may have done it, but he didn't mean to. The sentence was unfair. After a beat, he continues. First, my wish. I want to see what's on the other side. I've seen every horror movie you can think of at least 20 times. Halloween, Friday the 13th, Saw. Saw X is my favorite. The bloodboarding trap. Anyway, these movies show glimpses of what might be beyond the grave, but what's really there? I'm going to find out, and Mr. Comstock? You're gonna help me. It wasn't your fault that you offed that other motherfucker. Language, please. Shut up, Delia. What are you, my mom? Brandon coughs. I also cheat at school, and I've stolen things from time to time. That's nowhere near as bad as what I did recently, if it is bad. I don't think so. Remember that party Rachel and Tim threw last week? We all nod and murmur agreement. I try to keep myself from shivering again. There was this girl, Madison, super hot. We started dancing and we were drunk as fuck. The scales tip. Like that's a crime? Who among us hasn't gotten loaded? Everyone here but Alex was at that party. Alex was working. As far as I can remember, y'all had more than a few beers. Let me guess, says Delia. You had sex with Madison after she kept saying no. Hey, only when things got too late to stop. You asshole, you fucking pig. Now who's cussing? The left balance pan, sticky with the infinitesimal weight of Brandon's blood, sinks even lower. Okay, strike 2. At least I admit what I did, unlike some people who were also at that party. What did Zeb Comstock do when drunk? Beat someone he hated to death. Right, Kara? What did I do when I was drunk? I took the hints Madison was dropping that she wanted me. She gave about 1,000 of them. Delia scowls. Yet as soon as she said no, even once, those hints got canceled. Why didn't you stop me then? Why didn't you pull me aside and tell me I was being a dick? You were too intent on using yours. I can't believe it. Believe it, you hypocrite. You know what? If you burn in hell for what you did, it'll serve you right. Fuck you, Delia. Let's stop arguing and concentrate, I tell them both, to keep the spirit connection open. We quiet down and regroup. Brandon reiterates his desire to the ghost of Judge Durgee. Show me the place where you are. You've come to us. Now let me come to you. Nothing happens for about 10 seconds. Then the scales rebalance. The noose slackens so much it startles Brandon, and he almost falls off the stool. Regaining his composure, he takes the noose off, climbs down and rubs his neck. Bastard, that hurt like a mofo. None of the rest of us sympathize. Why didn't the judge call strike 3 on me and take me to him? That would have granted your wish, dumbass. You don't deserve it, says Alex. Disgusted, Brandon looks my way. All right, Kara, your turn. Suddenly I don't want to. Hard pass. You can't do that. We all have to go. Not if we're too scared, Delia says. Is it the blood thing? You can use the sewing pin. It's not that. What I did is so bad that if the judge really is here, I'm out. You can't be serious. I am. They say confession is good for the soul. Okay, but no ratting me out. I'm still trying to deal with this however I can. Don't cry, Kara. Whatever you do, don't shed a single tear. Delia offers me the sewing pin. I prick my finger, which hurts as much as getting a shot, and bleed into the balancing pan once I wipe it off. 4 drops this time. Not 3. 1 more. I allow a 5th drop to join the others. They form a tiny pool. That's too much. I think you ruined it. Try again. Nope. I put pressure on my finger. Hold this, please. Delia does as I take my place on our makeshift gallows. Once I'm properly situated, I hold the scales once more. I pledge my life upon Emily Dawes, an accused murderess. She did no wrong. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, Judge. I also swear my mouth is twice as dry as before. The scales rattle in my right hand. I grip them hard. They balance. We've admitted cheating, theft, and drunken assault. I begin once I finally find some spit to swallow. I haven't done any of those things, but something worse. I've killed someone. No way. Alex doesn't believe me. I can tell from the others' horrified expressions that they don't either. We've mentioned the party that almost all of us attended. Alex, you weren't at work when you thought you saw someone. You were hot-wiring that hunk of junk, weren't you? He nods matter-of-factly. The thing is, you did see someone. You saw me running away. From what? My car. I take a deep breath. I hit a girl on a bicycle. Tina Overstreet. She's in our class. No matter how hard I keep a grip on the scales, I feel them tip and not in my favor. It was so dark and I couldn't see, and oh screw it, I was texting and driving. Complete and utter silence. As soon as I looked up from my phone, I saw Tina swerve into my lane. She was trying to cross the road, and she hit the hood. That thud. Can't get it out of my mind. Breathe, Kara, breathe. I inhale and exhale 5 times as Delia directs me. Why didn't I pay attention? Why did I feel such a pressing need to respond to some dumb LOL from one of my other friends? I can't go to jail. They'll eat me alive there. I can't. I've thrown off the police so far, but I don't know how much longer I can last. I wait for the others to tell me they forgive me, have my back, but none of them say anything. The blood pan sinks lower. I feel the noose tighten around my neck and gag as Alex did. I do and don't deserve my wish, which I'll tell you in a minute. Right now, I'd like to remind Judge Durkee about Emily Dawes. She gave her wealthy aunt too high a dosage of medicine, and he hanged her for it. Emily's motive? Supposedly to gain an early inheritance. Emily didn't mean to kill her aunt. I didn't mean to kill Tina Overstreet, but we're both to blame. The noose cinches tighter. My one wish? To die. Instead of waiting for his honor to tighten the hangman's knot one last time, I kick the stool out from underneath me. My airway is cut off immediately, and spots swim before my eyes. I gray out. Before me lies another gray landscape, humid with thunderheads rolling overhead and heat lightning flashing from cloud to cloud like an obscure code. I'm dressed in rags. In back of me is an endless line of people similarly clothed, their faces ashen, their expressions grim. I wonder if we're all in hell, accused of crimes we comprehend all too well. The deep voice I heard before calls my name, Kara Maxim. I find myself before a judge's bench, the specter of Albert Durkee presiding. His red eyes glow like traffic lights, buried deep within his mouthless face. And they don't leave my own. You're charged with the death of Tina Overstreet by vehicular homicide. You have the choice of trial by a jury of your peers or an immediate plea. I see Alex, Brandon, and Delia next to the judge in a jury box. Beside them are the 4 innocents he hanged. They're all in chains, black coiled nooses around each of their necks. Each one stares at me, then closes their eyes and turns their head away. Let my friends go. No matter what else they've done or didn't do, they haven't killed anyone. Please, Your Honor, let these people you hanged plead for their release. As for me, I've shed 5 drops of blood into the balance, 4 for the 4 of us, and the 5th for you." The judge's eyes flicker in a blinking gesture. "You broke the law when you committed suicide. Therefore, you need redemption. You would do that for my sake?" "Yes, you and I are alike. We didn't mean to take others' lives, but we did." I kneel before the bench. "I'm guilty, Your Honor. Do you wish to speak before I pass sentence upon you?" "Yes, I didn't mean to hit Tina, and I'm so sorry. I'd do anything to relive that night and not answer that text, but I know I can't. All I can hope for is the death penalty." A cold wind, heavy with rain, whirls around me and the others waiting in line. After an eternity, the judge says, "No, I shall not condemn anyone else unjustly. I have been condemned to wait here at this threshold, neither saved nor damned, passing judgment upon those whose guilt has heretofore been concealed. Does it balance against their innocence, the good they've done and the wrong they didn't do? Not for your peers, I'm afraid. They're not just my peers, they're my friends. Then why have they turned away from you? I'd do that to a killer, too." "Very well," he pauses. "You shall not die as per your wish. Instead, you'll serve as the next judge. As long as you live, you'll dream of this court and hopefully temper justice with mercy. After your natural death, your spirit will do the same." Relief and horror flood me at the same time. "Yes, Your Honor. As for your friends in the jury box, they shall be freed on the condition that they cease their wrongdoing. If they do not agree, they shall remain here as captive jurors for all time. The 4 I hanged so long ago, through your act of redemption, you freed them too." Tears course down the faces of Ronnie Albright, Catherine Bradshaw, Zeb Comstock, and Emily Dawes. Their chains fall off, as do the black nooses around their necks. They then vanish. Alex, Brandon, and Delia gape. They promise to stop cheating, stealing, and drinking. The guys even agree to go to actual jail for what they've done, that if it comes to that, I know it will in my case. "Farewell," the judge says to all of us. "Remember what you've pledged." I come to on the cold and dusty attic floor of the dirgy house. There's no noose around my neck, but it burns like hell. My friends stand around me, holding their flashlights in my face. "My God, Kara," cries Delia. "We thought we'd lost you. Are you okay?" "I'm alive. Does that count?" The next morning, instead of going to school, I turn myself in to the police. Jail's not so bad during the day. At night, though, I can't stop dreaming of the court of the damned, where I preside. Alex, Brandon, and Delia don't return as jurors, though. They visit me every month. I've got 5 years to go. 2 in juvie, 3 in adult prison. Have you ever bargained with a ghost? We did. Our lives are no longer in danger, but our souls now hang in the balance. Credit. Tenet. The things we do for family. My parents died in a car crash on their way home from dropping me off my freshman year at Stanford. I never got the chance to call and tell them I was all settled in. They lay bleeding out in the street while I was decorating my room in crimson. It is only because of my roommate Joseph that I survived. Obviously, I was devastated and spent days straight hiding under the covers and alternating between utter rage and abysmal sadness. The only person willing to console me was Joseph, a perfect stranger who had every right to mind his own business. We would sit and he would listen while I played Jekyll and Hyde through the 5 stages of grief. The only things that I ate were prepared by him, and the only human interaction I had revolved around my feelings and his deep brown eyes. He saved me with kindness, compassion, and perfect loyalty. During our talks, he had convinced me to stay and continue school, as I had no home to go back to. I was an only child, and my parents were my only relatives, as they were orphaned at a young age and bonded over their struggle in foster care. I had nowhere else to be, so why not stay here and make something of myself, instead of crawling away to a hole to die? "There is honor in sadness, but not cowardice," he would say. As old-fashioned as that sounds, it made sense to me. Joseph was like that, a man out of time. Even now, long after I had climbed out of that hole of destruction, I marvel at the grace he showed in those moments, and contemplated whether or not I would have acted as gallantly. I knew Joseph was my family now. We are brothers, and I owe him my life. On top of babysitting me, he was also able to maintain his grades and had advocated to the dean on my behalf, delaying the start to my academic year. I'm pretty proud of myself for successfully completing my degree. There is no way I would have finished without Joseph. I used to joke that mine needed both our names on it. After college, we both pursued writing, though in entirely different styles. I used a weak attempt at capturing a voice in nonfiction as distinct as Anthony Bourdain or Hunter S. Thompson, and it allowed me to live hand to mouth. My brother took it upon himself to expose environmental corruption wherever it may hide. He was no doubt blacklisted by numerous big names in the field of carbon-emitting fuels. And I was definitely blacklisted from certain restaurants in NYC. The only issue I ever had with Joseph was how little he would tell me of his own family history. We had literally never spoken of it. The only thing he would say was that they lived in rural Northern California and that he had left them all behind. After many tries to crack the shell, his insistence on myth overcame. The day he called and asked me to join him in attending his sister's funeral came as a complete shock. And of course, I readily agreed to support him however he needed. We met in San Francisco from different parts of the globe and rented a car to drive the remaining 6 hours north to the farthest reaches of the state. As we passed farmland, forested mountain lakes, and into the volcanic plains, we didn't talk much. I knew the drill with him. He would speak when he wanted to talk. It's funny how rocks don't change, huh? He said with a grin at the absurdity of the statement. They were always the only landmarks to look for. My childhood had no street names, only geolocational descriptions in accordance to big rocks. It was the first thing he'd said to me since he stopped in Weed, a tiny town with a funny name off the 5. I still have that lighter he insisted I buy. Well, I can't say I'm surprised, Joe. There are more telephone poles than trees. Eventually, we turned off the interstate somewhere past a place called Eureka, onto a dirt road, and as we did so, Joe's demeanor began to change. My family is different than anything you could imagine, Chuck. The land is different up here. I'm sure you've heard of Lemurians? Yeah, the people who supposedly live in Mount Shasta. No fucking way, you're a Lemurian, I joked with widened fantastical eyes. Of course not, but there are people who believe. There are some people who are not wrong to believe there is something different about this place. My eyebrows began to retreat into a more concerned furrow. I'd never known my brother to be irrational. There aren't people that live in the mountain, as far as I know. My parents and their parents have searched. A community was built out here long ago, searching for the meaning to the mountain, searching to understand the power it can bestow on those that are willing to accept it. Their entire life has been, along with my ancestors, spent looking for the truth that lies out here on these plains at the foot of the volcano. I grew up completely disconnected from society. Instead, my family and many others lived a nomadic lifestyle, out here away from everyone else, looking for the truth to life. I had decided to support my brother in whatever way that I could. As a much younger man, after many nights thinking back on our quiet talks, remembering his kindness, I had promised myself I would repay him however I could. I would be there for him, and it was with this in mind that I said, "Joe, that's fucking crazy." He just smiled grimly. Now you know why we never talked about it. We spent the next hour jostling down a dirt road that traveled into the horizon unhindered, all the while I asked questions of which he did not answer. It wasn't until he stopped the car on the side of the road that he finally said anything. We sat for a moment in silence, and Joe's eyes began to well up and he spoke. "Chuck, I'm sorry it has to be this way. There is no way that I could have explained this to you that would have made sense, but you have to trust me. I will never let anything happen to you. I'm going to need your help here. Just do what I ask, and everything will be okay." With that, he opened his door and beckoned me to do the same. I slammed my door. Gunshots ripped through my ears. Joseph fired a handgun that I was unaware existed into the air 3 times, and I screamed out of shock. "We need to start walking, brother. We can't miss the funeral," he said, with brown eyes I had never seen contain so much sadness. My mind was made up a long time ago. I drew strength in my choice. "Sounds good, brother." It took only 20 minutes for the sun to set after we left the car, and I was completely blind, though I had a good hold on the back of Joe's coat to help me keep track of him. Joe was locked in on something I couldn't see and was sure-footed in his march to our unknown destination. For an endless amount of time I huffed and puffed and wondered what the hell was happening. Never once did I feel afraid to die, because I trusted Joe. I knew he wouldn't let anything happen to me. For some reason, I felt afraid for Joe. Eventually, a large structure loomed out of the darkness, almost as if by magic. A large yurt made of animal hides was standing prominently, with smaller versions scattered around it. There were torches outside the large yurt, illuminating a towering pillar of smoke emanating from the center of the tent. 2 men stood outside the main flap, and it was obvious we were expected. Joe saluted the men with his chest in a fashion I'd never seen, and they allowed us to enter. Inside it was tortuously hot and filled with people, all of whom would look more at home as an extra in a Conan movie than in the state of California. Little naked children ran about, squealing and playing amongst mothers. Bearded men with braided hair and ornamental beads all stopped talking at once when our presence became aware. All of them had weapons, though none looked intent on their use. In the middle of the tent sat 2 chairs, a pit of coals glowing white, and a large tarped object. This is where all eyes merged as the silence of our arrival rippled through the tent. For a long moment, the fantastically dressed couple seated on the thrones gazed upon Joseph in loving contempt. "I am pleased to see you still honor our traditions. We weren't sure you would come," the king said. "Of course, father, she was my sister," he said in measured respect. "Choosing to move on from the mountain does not change my respect for it, for what it has given us. I am here to honor my sibling. I chose to walk another path, not forget who I am." The throned man accepted this and turned to me. "Do you speak English?" Yeah, I do." I finally choked through my astonishment at the whole situation. "Very well, no time to waste," he said, and clapped his hands together. Immediately, a whirl of motion began, as drums beat in earnest. We were pulled bodily, made to move around the center pit. The entire tent groaned throatily together in unison as they undulated together. Next to me, I could hear Joe doing the same, a sound emitting from his chest rather than his mouth. It infected the room and vibrated the yurt in an orchestra of humanity. Strongly, he grabbed my hand and led me to the pit, the mass parting for us, hurrying us toward his mother and father and the shrouded shape. All the while, the heat grew as we moved closer to the pit, descending down into the fires, the thrones, and coals. Now that I could see, I realized they were not coals, but rocks being superheated by the earth. The volcano, tangible to those who dare. We stood in front of the thrones, holding hands, as Joe's father began to speak in a deep tone that captured the energy of the jubilation, and as the beating of the drums crescendoed, he boomed. "Finally, the lost son has returned. We are glad to have him, are we not?" The entire tent chanted yes. The king continued, "Joseph, tell of your sister. Tell of her glory." After a moment, Joseph, in an equally stunning voice, rejoined. "Marian understood the circle. She understood family. She gave all for me, so that I may try and make a more direct change for our home, for our forgotten brothers and sisters. She is beautiful and wise. She is a worthy voice returned to the many." Seemingly satisfied, Joseph's father said, "You accepted the gift, Joseph. It is because of your sister that you are allowed to lead the life you do. She took up your burden. Have you made yourself worthy of this gift?" "That is not for me to decide." The king was surprised and proud of this. "Then it is only right that you complete her cycle, from the fires to the fires again." "Yes," Joseph said, looking at the shrouded figure, tears flowing down his face. The king turned and whipped the shroud away to reveal the crucified remains of Joseph's sister, mottled green and black from days of decomposition. She looked just like Joe. The resemblance would not be betrayed by the rot. Ornately, she had been sliced at the navel, and her entrails lay draped amongst a small bouquet of flowers at her feet. The heat, the smells, and the sight all culminated in the most intense case of nausea imaginable, and I released it into the pit, adding the aroma. I felt like I was going to suffocate, until I felt Joe's calming touch on my back. I wiped my mouth and stood up straight, remembering that this was a funeral. The king, looking directly at me, continued his speech. Upon the backs of your brothers, upon the backs of your sisters is carried the future of our people. When we become one in that belief, then are we granted the strength of our ancestors. Marion understood this. She sacrificed greatly for Joe in his stead. Her brother chose to lead a path away from the mountain, and her love for him burned brightly while he was wayward. Because of this, her life energy collapsed prematurely. Now, Joseph, you are here to pay that debt. Are you here to carry your sister as she has carried you? Joe looked at me, braced himself, and nodded, his father approaching us. And this, he pointed at me. Who is this? This is my brother. He is us. He has stared at death and overcome, a warrior unto his own right. The king looked upon me unmoved. I see. He is, Joseph said with force, and it gave me strength. Very well, prepare them then. I was immediately seized as the drums beat again. Joe and I were moved on a wave of men as they tore at our clothes, ripping everything away from me. I fought and screamed for Joe, who merely repeated, "Trust me, brother, trust me." Naked, we both were placed in front of the pit, the king booming as the drums beat rhythmically, the masses groaning in unison. Bound by flesh, these brothers, as those of us are before. A debt paid in flesh deserves return, honor, again restored. With this, the king reached into the gut pile and began feeding the innards onto the rocks, the sizzle proving what I already knew. Calmly, with his bare hands, this father feeds his daughter into the fire. Stone is the face of the king as he says goodbye to his daughter. Now, Joseph, kneel before your sister. Joseph does what he is told, and kneels naked into the fire in front of what is left of his sister. Not a sound escapes his lips as he surrenders his tender flesh to the mountain. Lie with your sister, son, the king yells over the cacophony. And without hesitation, Joe falls face first into the pit, lying there motionless. After an eternity, he rolls away, steaming and silent. The burns were indescribable, and as the smoke cleared, it reveals that his sister and he had become one in the inferno. I ran to his side, looking to embrace where I could, not knowing where he began or the burns ended. My heart ached for him as he lay there smoldering in the dirt, looking up to his father's approving eyes. His son was an honorable man, and had proved so again. Your brother needs you now. Take him upon your back, as he has no doubt done for you. Yes, I said, turning to look at his face, tears evaporating from my cheeks. I picked up my brother's naked and mutilated body and draped him over myself, knowing what my purpose in the funeral was. I walked from the yurt, through the pitch-black night, unclothed, as our skin, charred and soft, combined through the rigor. Somehow, I marched us back to the car, though the strength by which I achieved this feat did not come from me, but rather through me. I spoke with Joseph about everything we knew, keeping us company in the cold, still, moonless prairie, but only his gusting breath in my ear proved his vitality. It was daybreak when I finally made it to the car, and had to peel myself away from my brother. Joseph made me promise not to take him to the hospital, as he lay mushing into the seat of our rental car. Obviously, I thought that was insane, but at the moment, insanity wasn't a definable concept to me, so I plowed through the night back to Weed and found a motel. Through crackling, ragged breaths, he instructed me to fill the tub with ice, to lay him down upon it, and leave him until his call. I'm still not sure how he was able to convince me, but I did what he asked. I felt like I had to, even though I was almost certain that I was laying him down to die an agonizing death. For 3 days, I sat in the room next to his tub, absolutely driving myself insane. I tried to write down everything that I had experienced, if only to prove to myself it couldn't have happened. Writing and rewriting, trying to find words to put to the experience, trying to put a voice to ideas that only seemed to live in a feverish nightmare I had imagined. Finally, after I had lost all hope, my brother spoke to me. An urgency flashed through my being, and I knew it was time. I flew through the door of our motel room to find him unburned, though aged markedly. His joy at my sight thronged vibrantly in my soul, this newly felt connection exciting and terrifying. Though we were alone in the room, I now felt the presence of many others. Upon the backs of your brothers, upon the backs of your sisters, is carried the future of our people. It took a few more days for us to leave, and before we did, we drove out to the mountain so we could say goodbye. There was no sign of the family. We returned the rental car and paid a horrific cleaning fee for what became of the back seat. I wouldn't be surprised if I was blacklisted there as well. That was the last time I had actually heard from Joe. 10 years without a spoken word, yet our bond informs me of him. We are connected through family, through voices in the ether. Which is why, a couple days ago, I could feel the news hit him, and then me. His call a few minutes later confirmed what I had already known. My life's goal was to explain how I felt about my parents' death to the world. I wanted to show through sarcastic wit and charm that I was not affected by the loss of my family. Stupidly, I tried to forget my past and start anew, instead of accepting and growing with who I now carried with me. After the funeral of my half-sister, a new chapter opened in my life, one that has led to a sense of inner peace and acceptance. A few days ago, Joseph's father died, and it is time for another funeral. It's time to help my brother prove his worth again. Upon the backs of our brothers, upon the backs of our sisters, is carried the future of our people. Credit, EdGeinEtsy. Non dormire. A man's home is his castle. That's what they say. Do you know what a castle is? A fortress that's supposed to be impenetrable. It's my job to penetrate them. Yeah, I'm a burglar. I challenge you to judge me on that fact alone. How many of you have ever taken a peek in someone else's bedroom or medicine cabinet? How about filching a TV guide, a pair of earrings, a condom for a long night of fun? Whatever you do, I take it one step further. 2, if the homeowner deserves it. I've rescued cats and dogs from filthy dumps along with 1 or 2 kids. I don't play the hero, though. Along with the possibility of going to jail, that makes me sick. I see do-gooders with faces full of phony humility all the time on the 6 o'clock news. They get what they came for. I do too, but I keep quiet. I'll have to keep double quiet on my next job. Old man Paglia may not be the richest Italian in terms of stocks and bonds, or mob connections, but his coin collections are worth an ungodly payout. He's been a numismatist for more than 50 years. So far, no one's pulled off this heist. I wonder why not. Word travels fast and dies hard in the underground. Good thing I'm familiar with that territory. Lockpicks, hammers, slim jims, master keys, pliers, spark plugs, rope. I have all I need. Most importantly, I have a will to win. To own this place. Getting to the second story is no problem since the house is brick and I'm skilled at climbing on porch roofs, but holy cow, who puts barbed wire in a window? I'm lucky I saw it before shredding myself to pieces. A few snips from my wire cutters and the threat's gone. I climb inside a bedroom that smells like it hasn't been aired out for several months. Maybe Paglia sleeps downstairs like some old people do. The coins are somewhere else, so I begin my search. There's enough moonlight for me to canvass room to room. I don't hear much except for a grandfather clock ticking away. No dogs, no alarm systems, nothing that would tip anyone off to my presence. I don't find anything upstairs, so I head down. Just as I thought, he's sleeping and snoring on a recliner in the living room. I do my best to sneak past him soundlessly, but several floorboards creak underneath me. I pace and grope until I find a doorknob on a locked door. It only takes a simple bobby pin, not one of my more advanced picks, to get the lock to yield. You'd think Paglia would have better ones, but maybe he's cheap and won't install them. So much the better for me. I'm in a study or den. Lots of books line one wall. I suspect that one hides a safe. One by one, I pull them out by their spines until I hear a click. A portion of the bookshelf shifts to reveal my target. I'll have to crack it by force because I don't know the combination. I lay my toolkit down on the nearby desk and open it. Ciao. Non dormir. Oh no, it's Pagliai. He's standing next to me, right in my face, looking like he wants to poke my eyes out with 2 fingers in a V shape. Fortunately, I have a gun and he doesn't. Wincing at his stale body odor, I press my pistol into his ribs. Give me the code. No reply. Didn't you hear me? I said give me the combination. Non dormir. Is he speaking English? Doesn't sound like it. I'll shut him up. If you don't do what I say, I'll plug you. I jam the gun in deeper. He curls the tips of his splayed fingers so they look like hooks. Non dormir. Now. He rattles off a series of more unintelligible words. I push a legal pad and a pencil on the desk toward him. Write it down and don't try anything funny. He scribbles 3 numbers in a spidery scrawl. I can barely read it in the light of my flashlight. With the pistol still pointed at Pagliai, I take my first guess at the safe. No luck. Again. He rewrites the combination more legibly. Still, I can't make head or tail of it. This is your last chance. Again. On his 3rd try, his bony hands stop shaking and write 3 numbers I recognize. I twist the safe's dial according to them, and it falls neatly open. Thanks, old-timer. You've made me rich. Pagliai lurches forward, aiming to claw my face. I pull the trigger and fire. He slumps to the floor, gurgling out his last moments. I feel nothing. No regret, no sorrow, not even shock. I'm just numb. This is my first kill, and hopefully my only one. Self-defense is legit. I still don't want the cops anywhere near me, so I hurry and look in the safe. Empty. God damn it. I check the desk. The bottom right drawer has a lock equal to the challenge of one of my master keys. Bingo! The coin collections greet me, winking in my flashlight's beam. I stuff them all into my backpack, zip it up, and head for the back door. It's so dark outside that the streetlights do little to guide my way, or to reveal me. I slink through backyards and back alleys until I find my way home. Once inside, I remove my balaclava, gloves, and black clothes. Time for bed. My head hits the pillow and my eyes close, but I can't sleep. I'm too wired. I lie in the darkness, wondering how to get clear of my crimes. I have a rap sheet, but not so long as to make me one of the usual suspects. I tried to be as careful as I could during the job, but the old man caught me. His V-finger gesture gave me the creeps. He wasn't so much flipping me off as he was cursing me. What was that weird phrase? I toss, turn, and sweat the whole night through. I don't get any real sleep. The next day, my eyes are sore and burning. I get up, shower, and shave, staring at my bloodshot reflection in the mirror. Throughout the morning, I find myself unable to concentrate for brief flashes. That phrase keeps running through my head. Non dormir. Non dormir. I try to Google it using text-to-speech, but for some reason that doesn't work. Pushing it to the back of my mind, I go throughout my day, eating, drinking, and figuratively sitting on my hands because I'm so anxious. Still, last night's effects linger, and I can't wait to take a nap. I crawl into bed, but end up lying there bored and trying not to stare at the ceiling. Do you know how hard that is? I count backward from 100, then 200, but my mind stays awake. I get up and turn on the local news. A manhunt has ensued for the alleged killer of Giovanni Pagliai. Shit. Do I dare leave my apartment? If I get caught, I might get the death penalty. If you commit murder during a felony, that's all she wrote. I've also broken my number 2 and number 3 rules. Never go too long between jobs. Don't stretch yourself too thin. That's why I panicked at Pagliai's. If I didn't get my hands on those collections, I'd be short more than a couple of paydays. The thing is, now that he's dead and they're mine, I can't do anything with them. I turn off the TV and go through my options. I could contact my usual fence, but he'd rat me out in a half-second once he found out what I had. I could try to sell them online, but that takes a while, and I wouldn't get the money right away. I could pawn them. A slow sale over time. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll scrape by for several months, then unload the mother lode. My pawnbroker doesn't ask too many questions. However, he might this time. Collectible coins aren't my regular loot, and he'll wonder. No, I can't allow myself to think like that. I won't go over to Frank's shop immediately. I'll keep the sets until I'm desperate, then start pawning them one by one. In the meantime, I'll lay low. What's that out of the corner of my eye? I blink. Nothing. I thought I saw a shadow. Over the next week, my sleep problems continue. No matter what I try, I can't get some shoot-eye. I drink NyQuil by the bottle. That makes my body warm and weak, but doesn't knock me out like I thought it would. Night after night, I remember wasting Pagliai. He attacked me first, right? My pistol has a silencer, so no one heard the shot, right? Unsafe, right? In the daytime, I see more peripheral shadows cast by nothing and floaters in my direct field of vision. These specks of light annoy me to no end, because I think that gnats are buzzing around my head. I don't get worried, though, until they swarm together and form faces with wide-open eyes and a wide-open mouth in a silent scream. I only see them for a moment, but they're enough to make goosebumps prickle all over my body and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. So familiar, these faces, each bearing an expression of surprised horror. They're not my victim, but somehow I know every one of them. I start using a sleep mask so I won't have to rely on closing my eyes for darkness. That helps, but only a little. The repetition of non-dormir continues in my mind and my body starts suffering. I drag my feet and shuffle my steps. My eyelids weigh 100 pounds, and they ache. So do my muscles. When you keep yourself busy with pointless tasks during the day and spend most of the night lying awake, you get stiff as a board. Feverish too, at least in my case. When I see the caterpillars, I scream out loud. Literal insects are crawling around on my limbs. They're black and thick with spikes all over their bodies. Every time they move, their pinching legs sink deeper into my flesh. They also consume it bit by bit. Did you know caterpillars take dumps? It's true. They squeeze out these black pellets. When I squeeze one of them on the surface of my arm, it turns bright red. I scratch until I bleed some more, thinking that'll frighten the little fuckers away. It doesn't. It only makes them hungrier, their forms relentlessly bloating. They grow from tiny to huge in a matter of minutes. They then clamp onto a lower layer of my skin and shed their own. Their pupas writhe with the larvae's efforts at rebirth. One crawls into my mouth. I try to spit it out, but it hangs and pupates there. I don't wake up. One thing I realize as dawn arrives, and the chrysalises shrivel up and disappear, was that Pagliai collected not only coins but butterflies and moths. He'll collect me if this fucking insomnia continues. 3 things keep me from going mad. Trying to figure out the shadows, the faces, and what non-dormir means. The shadows are probably nothing since they're cast by nothing. The faces, replicas of my own. The phrase? At long last I get Google's text-to-speech to work. Non-dormir. Don't sleep. I have been cursed, and the only person who can undo it is dead by my hand. Maybe if I give the coins back, but why? Why would I give up the only thing I gained from killing Pagliai? Besides, I need them to get me through the next few months. I dare not risk another job. Not while the manhunt's still on and my victim is still in the local headlines. That leaves what? Gouging my eyes out and replacing them with a couple of his stupid collectible state quarters? Now there's a thought. Mine grow more disjointed with each day that passes. Each hour, each minute, each second. The shadows lengthen and turn into ghostly forms that slither up to me and let me see their floater-swarming faces. Intuition tells me that they're the burglars who came before me, one by one, to steal Pagliai's prized possessions. They failed. He found them and cursed them the last in a line. What can I do? One thing I won't do is confess. No matter how long I go without sleep, I'd rather be in a mental hospital than in prison. I don't think my argument of self-defense is going to fly. The state will say I was sane when I committed burglary and shot the old man. That much is true. That much will lead me to the lethal injection chamber. It's the one time that being declared competent is not a compliment. In desperation, which has devoured me like a caterpillar devouring a leaf, I turn to Frank at the pawn shop with the first set of coins. I promise him half of what I make selling them. Half? Not a measly 10%. The rat bastard turns me in, and I trade my cluttered apartment for a jail cell not even half its size. I still can't sleep. The insects don't appear anymore, but something worse does. Needles. Needles penetrating every major vein. I shiver all over, sweating and stinking up the cell, but no one cares. Someone gives me a couple of Tylenol, but no sleeping pills. They don't work anyway. Eventually, the state rules that I'm unfit to stand trial by reason of insanity. I move to a nice, clean facility with a nice antiseptic atmosphere. I endure the needles not once, but every day when I'm sedated. The old man comes to me as I finally fall into slumber, saying, "Dormi bene." Sleep well. Once I'm declared competent, and once I face my final needle, I will. Credit. Tenet. Subscribe for more horror stories every day.